Hello there, and welcome to the Marketing SOS Show. I am your host, Eric Yee, and if this is your first time tuning in, what happens on the show is people from all over the world, from students to small business owners to even marketing professionals themselves, email me when they have an issue, they want a second opinion on a marketing-related question. And I do my very best to dig deep into my knowledge and my experience and give them an answer or a strategy on how to move forward and solve whatever they're facing. So that's what I love to do. I love to sit here and help in whatever way I can. And for any small business owner that's experiencing tight purse strings or loss of business due to COVID-19, please email me at eric@marketingsos.ca. My advice is free. My time is free. I'm just here to help. So please use me. I would love to help anyone who's facing difficulty during these uncertain times. Now, we've been doing a few COVID-19 related questions over the past few weeks because, it is pretty topical and a lot of people are emailing me about this. But today's episode, it's from a few weeks ago before all this started, but I wanted to resurface it just to break things up a little bit to not have everything so dire and pandemic related. And this question deals with recognizing plagiarism on your marketing team and what you do when you see it. And a lot of this really depends on, the company, the organization, where you're situated in the team and how big the plagiarism is and what they're plagiarizing on. But no matter what, it's a tough issue. And, one here in the marketing industry that we probably see more than we like to admit, to be quite honest. I've seen lots of people in the workforce passing off the guru's work online as their own and getting all the reaping all the benefits from it. This happens a lot. So let's hear from Ken and find out what his situation is and how we can fix it just after this. So, Ken writes, "Hello, I noticed my coworker plagiarized quite a bit in a blog post. I was asked to make a correction on the blog and don't know what to do. Do I tell him? Do I tell our manager? I feel like if I tell him, it may sound like I'm sticking my nose in their work. Plus, I don't think he'll correct it at all, because he did it in the first place. But if I go straight to my manager, would that be kind of jerky? Any insights would be great. Ken." Hey, Ken, well, this is a tough one. Anytime there's interpersonal relationships in the workplace, I always consider it a tough one. Something should be done, bottom line, because it is wrong, and it can also negatively impact your company's reputation, as well as hurt your website's Google rankings with duplicated content. The way you approach this largely depends on your boss and your coworker and your relationship with both of them. Now, as a manager, I would want to be aware of it and watch for it in the future. Now, that being said, as the coworker, you need to look out what's best for you and your career here. You don't want to make an enemy out of someone by tattling on them. Now, the tattling does depend on where you and that coworker are situated within the hierarchy and a few other factors. Now, one way to go about this, and the way I might go about it at first, is the more diplomatic route. And give your coworker an easy out. Since you were asked to revise or correct his work already, perhaps mention that you think a paragraph from his research or draft mistakenly ended up in the published version. This gives him a setup explanation, and he should take this as an indicator to be more careful in the future. And he'll also likely know that you know and will be better. At least, let's hope he does. This prevents you from outright accusing him of plagiarism and comes off as friendly advice, but there's also some subtlety and undertones here to not do it again. If he does ignore you, and you notice it happening again, this is when I would escalate it to the manager, especially if it could tank your website's rankings. Document this case and what was plagiarized in case you need some backup evidence in the future. And do this for everything going forward with this coworker. Now, this can be a delicate situation, and it all comes down to how you are going to approach it based upon several factors like his seniority, your workplace culture, your long-term plan at this company, and, of course, office politics all play a role in how you should handle this. So take my advice, frame it within the context of those other elements that I just mentioned, and hopefully you come up with a good solution that resolves this and you guys can move forward and never have to talk about it again. So good luck, Ken. So Ken, thank you for writing in. Plagiarism always sucks, and this could seriously hurt your company's reputation and your rankings. So it's definitely something that needs to be resolved. You can't just ignore it when you see it. It all just depends on how you want to handle it. So I've given you a little bit of advice on how to frame it, give him an out, stuff like that. It's always good. So that way you're not just sitting there and blaming someone who maybe they just unintentionally did it because they don't know better. Or because, I went to university and a lot of people plagiarized and they thought it was fine, even if they cited things. But some people just don't know better. Some people are too afraid to ask for advice, and some want to look like that knowledgeable expert and not know what they're doing. So there's a ton of ways to approach this, but it largely does come down to how your company is, how your company is structured, how things are going to work out. And unfortunately, with the world being what it is today, with the internet being so prevalent in our everyday lives and how we consume and produce content, you see plagiarism all over the place. I've seen it in my past, back in the day when I had my own company and I was writing a lot of content. People would just straight up lift that content and post it on their own websites and pass it off as theirs and change the author, word for word, the exact same content. And that always bugged me, and I fought as hard as I could to get them to take it down. But it's an ongoing battle. It's something that's just going to exist in our culture for a long time. And a lot of people get away with it, to be quite honest, unfortunately. They don't always have people calling them out on things. So good on you, Ken, for recognizing it and wanting to rectify it. So as we wrap the show up for this week, here's my ask. If you could leave the show a ratings and review on whatever podcast player you listen to, it goes a long way to help building the show and helping me connect with a greater audience and doing more good and helping more people, which is really what I want to do with this show, is really just to connect and help people out with their marketing and business-related questions. And if you have a question for me that you would love to get featured on the show, or if you just want me to email you an answer or some recommendations, especially if you're a small business owner impacted by COVID-19, drop me a line at eric@marketingsos.ca. It's .ca, not .com, not .co, .ca like the first two letters of Canada. I am more than happy to take a look at any issue or question that you're facing and try to help you in whatever way I can. So thank you in advance for that. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Eric E, and with that, I am out.